Hey everyone, yeah, my name is Brian. I'll be talking about driving mainstream adoption of Web3 and crypto through media, entertainment, and video games. Um, Quickly about my background. In my previous kind of life, I ran a marketing agency. It was one of the top marketing agencies in America at one point. And we built a couple 100 million reader digital publication. I was writing for sites like Forbes and Rolling Stone, and building this big marketing company, but hated the management of that. Exited the agency. The very first meeting I took after I exited the agency was somebody that said, it was in 2014, and they said, you should take a look at this thing called Ethereum. And fortunately, I was able to buy some, and from there, made hundreds of investments in the crypto space. Now we have a VC fund called Apex Block Capital. Most interestingly, recently, I was a judge on the first mainstream crypto TV show called The Next Crypto Gem. It's out on Amazon globally in October 2nd. So it was a really interesting experience. It gave me a perspective of thinking about how does a mainstream audience perceive crypto, right? And what kind of projects can you show them that they would even understand? Because if you think about a DeFi application, for instance, from a mainstream audience, it's very confusing and very difficult to understand. So there's certain types of projects I don't want to talk about in this presentation, such as video games, that I think are, in the next few years could really drive hundreds of millions of people, if not billions, to crypto and Web3. Beyond that, the show it was educational. There was a lot of breakaway moments where people, would learn about crypto, and we talk about, hey, an ERC20 token is XYZ. This is how Bitcoin works. George, Cryptos R Us, was another judge on the show. He's one of the biggest YouTubers in the crypto space. And Leah Halpern as well, who's on the Bitcoin side, was also part of the show. You can go to thenextcryptogem.com to see the first episode is on Distro TV now, so you can check that out. Beyond that, here's why, if you think about crypto, video games are a good analogy. They're a driver of culture. When you see them eventually make it to the movies and make it to TV, it's made it at that point. Other traditional forms of onboarding people to various industries were magazines. And the problem we have now is, look at an event like this. This is amazing. There's tens of thousands of people here, but we're kind of, as much as it seems like everybody in the world is here, it's still actually a very small community. I bump into people all the time that I, from 1 degree separated away from that So we have to get out of these walls somehow. And I think that there's these three categories. I think entertainment is one of them, of course. But today, I really want to talk about video games. Video games, as I learned on the show, were something that you could show people that knew nothing about crypto or Web3. And you could say, hey, this is a video game. Your character in the video game is an NFT or a digital asset that you can take out of the video game. Your gold in your game is a token that can be transferred around in and outside of the game. It was an easy concept for people to wrap their head around. Gaming, this is an older stats here, but these are some of the stats around gaming. Gaming is actually bigger than TV, music, and film, revenue-wise. And this is back from 2018. Gaming is even bigger than this now. It's a massive, massive industry. And my theory about gaming in Web3 and crypto is it's not that Web3 has to replace all of gaming. I see it as buckets, right? I see it as you'll have your traditional games, your Fortnites and your World of Warcrafts, but you'll have your other bucket of games over here where people will want to own those digital assets. Because people spend so much time. Here's why. Here's why Web3 gaming is going to be a thing in more and more as time goes on. People spend so much time on their video games that it's more and more over the last few years because of the interactivity of gaming and even AI, for instance. The games nowadays, there's more and more depth to the game. You spend more and more time in the game, so you feel a part of that game. Your character, you feel like you're part of your character in the game. And blockchains are a real good match for gaming. I'm going to tell you why. So this is an analogy that Vitalik uses all the time. He was playing World of Warcraft. They nerfed his character. He started Ethereum. So let's look at why Ethereum is so similar to video games. The economies in video games, for instance, they're just like virtual economies in DeFi applications. And all the NFTs and the digital assets are very similar from blockchains and video games. The game rules themselves are very much like smart contracts. DeFi platforms are just like game engines, Unity and Unreal. So there's all these similarities between video games and smart contracts. Vitalik was playing video games, quit video games when they changed it, built Ethereum. There's even concepts from video games, for instance, called soul-bound tokens. And these concepts made it to Ethereum that come from video games. So kind of seems like it's a perfect match for video games. So if you think about I'll give everybody a history lesson on gaming real quick. So games started as closed loop. They started as closed loop games. You would play Mario Brothers or Mortal Kombat or any of the first kind of games that came out. Closed loop essentially means that you play for a little while and then you die, you lose, game over, the game's done, right? Then people thought and said, okay, well, what can we do to keep people playing longer? So they created endless level games where just new levels are created over and over again, Flappy Birds, in different kinds of Candy Crush type games where there would just be a new level all the time. You can constantly play it over and over again. Then they said, okay, that's cool, but I want to play with my buddy over here in Singapore, and I'm in LA. We should make them connected online, right? So they created games like Call of Duty, where we could play virtually all over the world together. So those were online multiplayer games. Then they said, well, let's go even further. Let's add some more player agency to this. Let's customize it to you, where we can, now with AI, you can get really in-depth. You can customize the gaming experience to the particular player. And then, so what happens with the agency in the customization of gaming is that people spend so much time playing their games. They spend thousands of hours, hundreds of hours. So after a while, you're thinking, well, it would be nice to own a piece of that. And people spend so much money on games as well that ownership is the next evolution of gaming, where because you're spending so much time, you're putting all this effort into the games, so even if you don't do it professionally, even if you just do it casually, you're putting lots of time and energy and effort into these games, and you want to own a piece of that. Your character itself could be owned in obviously the gold in the games. Another reason why gaming basically is, if you think about this, think about traditional games, right? You don't see people putting their Call of Duty skins or their Fortnite skins character as their profile picture on social media. But what do you see? You see Web3 games. These are NFT projects, but you see NFT projects that have games and various games. They represent them on social media. So they're rocking those pictures all over social media like no one has ever done before in video games. For that reason, the virality, the network effect of Web3 games is increasing more and more. And that's why I believe, and I'm seeing firsthand that, wow, not only are people spending so much time, they want to own a piece of it, but now that I own a piece of it, I want to market it myself. And that creates this flywheel, this snowball effect of Web3 gaming, where people are essentially a marketing engine for the games, where they never were before in previous sort of worlds. So this is interesting too, and I had this happen to me as a gamer, playing World of Warcraft or whatever game you're playing. In the Web 2 world, if you want to sell your character, no, that's not allowed. You're banned. But in Web 3, it's encouraged. You're encouraged to sell your NFT. There's royalties involved. It's beneficial for everybody. The project creators, the game creators can make money from it. You can make money from it, and it's incentivized and encouraged to build a market, no one out there is arguing that the game creators of the world should make more and more money. They're saying, well, shouldn't we share a piece of this with the people actually helping us build these communities? This is really interesting. DeFi Kingdoms was actually in the TV show, by the way. NetX Crypto Gem. So I learned a lot about what they're doing. So if you think about a game, a Web3 game, on the surface level, you have this game, right? But guess what it actually is? A swap, a liquidity pool, NFTs, tokens. So you're learning about all these aspects of DeFi through the game. So not only is it a fun thing, not only can you own it, but also you're teaching people through gaming how to use DeFi. So what is it? It's an onboarding tool. So because it's an onboarding tool, you can drive in DeFi's Kingdom's case, they're bringing hundreds of millions of transactions to blockchains. So what they do is, if for anyone that's a gamer here, you would know that you have your zones. Like a World of Warcraft launches a new zone. In DeFi Kingdom's case, they launch their new zone as a blockchain, a new blockchain. They go from Avalanche to Polkadot to Ethereum or whatever chain they're on, and they can bring 100 million transactions, 100 million transactions. And it's not only about the transactions, it's about exposing those audiences to those tools on each blockchain. So a lot of people just think like gaming is this thing that, it's for some niche audience, but it actually plays very hand in hand with DeFi, and a lot of DeFi adoption have come from these types of games. And it kind of gets gets a bad reputation because of play to earn and stuff that didn't really work out, but it's not even about that. It's really about usage and driving adoption through the games. Alpha District's a game we're working on. Here's an example. You can have a AAA quality game where your character is an NFT, your gold in the game is a token, and on the surface level, you just have a storytelling platform, a game of a 3D world that you're just playing along. And the old argument was, well, you don't want to confuse players with having to download a wallet and figure out NFTs and all that kind of stuff, but you don't have to now. There's tools and technology out there to have the game, and then behind the scenes, if they want to, they can take the NFTs and the tokens outside of the game. And I remember some Gala Games was telling me, and a couple others told me, the #1 support ticket they had previously before changing the methodology was, I lost my seed phrase. So that was a problem, but it's now being fixed due to this. So quickly recapping, Vulcan Forged here is another great example of a driver of adoption in gaming. You can monetize your gameplay through. That's another thing too. It's not only about earning money, perhaps, but you can monetize in different capacities by owning these assets. Gaming, bigger industry than TV, film, and music combined, depending on how you look at it from either a revenue or a user perspective. Players spending so much time in these games that it only makes logical sense that they want to own a piece of that. Obviously, we know it's a perfect match for blockchains because Ethereum, for instance, literally came from a gamer playing games and realizing, hey, there's probably a way to make some of these game rules like a smart contract and create some of these economies very much like I saw in the games. So anyways, I'm out of time, but I just wanted to share that with you of why I'm bullish on Web3 gaming. Thank you.